up your engine! Here is a 2008 Dodge Caravan where I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the really ugly. Now in 2020, Dodge finally decided to stop making these things. For me, I say good riddance. These things had so many transmission problems over the ages. I've had customers go through 2 or 3 of them in one of them. I even had one customer, strangely enough, had bought 4 of them. His wife liked the space. He kept buying them used. When they finally fell apart, he'd buy another one. At least he was smart enough, the 4th one, and he bought a special warranty. And I checked it out before he bought it. I said, well, it seems okay, but you know, it's another one of these Dodge Caravans going to fall apart. And I can hear the compressor starting to go on the AC. He bought it, and about a month later, the compressor went out, but his warranty paid for it, so it didn't cost him out of pocket. Now, this particular one has a real serious problem. It just dies going down the road. Highway city, it just turns itself off. Now, how the heck did they sell so many of these? It's got a 3.8 V6. Puts out plenty of horsepower. It's a relatively decent engine. But the transmission, not so much. It's a 62 TE Chrysler design. And they're notorious for failure. Now we'll see, the thing does start right up if I get the key. And here's the transmission. It actually has a shiftable one. You can go up, down in gears. It was an interesting design at the time. And the AC, it still blows kind of cold. Not freezing, but still kind of cold. But it's the space in these things that sold them. I mean, look at all the space. It's got the 3rd row seats. We open it up. Oh, it's not an automatic one, it's old-fashioned. A lot of room in the back. It's got TV consoles up here, AC blowers up here, and in the back, that was well thought out. And of course it has cup holders everywhere. They're all over the place. You want to put crap in the trunk. You can see even with the seat, there's some room when you take it out. Look at all the space you got. These things are haulers. And that's how they sold these things. Big. Lots of room. Decent amount of horsepower. Now this engine does have 197 horsepower, but on the other hand, it's a big vehicle, so it's no race vehicle. As time went on, they beefed up the horsepower. Some of them have 283 horsepower, almost 100 more than this thing. But they did have transmission problems from that extra power. These Chrysler transmissions are not made to take that. They can barely take this horsepower. Now you might say, Scotty, well, this has got 177,000 miles. It's still going. Yes, but it's owned by a little old lady. Drives like a little old lady. You go slow, in most vehicles, they're gonna last quite some time. You push one of these babies, you're gonna burn the transmission out. I've seen so many transmissions go out in these things. Those Chrysler transmissions, they were a supposed upgrade from the previous version, but these 6-speeds, they're notorious for having problems, shuddering, losing gears. They're not very well made transmissions. And as bad as they don't really have dipsticks. They got this here, but you have to break it off. It's sealed in there, and there's no dipstick inside. You could actually make one yourself, which is kind of ridiculous. I got a point for it, but they just decided to leave them off. It's an electronically controlled automatic transmission, and if you know anything about Chryslers, what do they have a history of? Electronic problems, and these transmissions are exactly the same as the rest of the vehicles. They have electronic problems. This one obviously has a very serious electronic problem because it just stops running. You're driving on the highway, shuts off. Driving downtown, it just shuts off pretty much randomly. The guy's taking it to a bunch of mechanics, can't figure it out, so he brought it to me to try to figure out, which I'm going to do in another video. So a lot of people were fooled by all the space. They have a decent ride to them too. And let's face it, it's a minivan. They all look like minivans. Style's not that big of a deal in a minivan. Now, if they wouldn't have put these horrible transmissions in them and had upgraded electronics, they actually would be pretty good vans. But then again, they don't. And they aren't. I mean, if you're going to put a Toyota transmission and Toyota electronics in it, go out and buy a Sienna van. It's already got all that stuff in it. It's going to last 300,000-400,000 miles. This thing never would on that transmission. This is the furthest I've ever seen on one where the transmission hadn't been destroyed already. Like I said, it's a little old lady and she drives slow. That's how it's lasted so long. Let's take it for a ride and see how it goes. So start up. Starts right up. Got the AC on. Does have a backup camera. Old as it is. And as we drive around, typical old van, you can hear the struts and shocks bouncing and banging when you hit bumps. Things are worn, there's no arguing that. Now we'll see how it accelerates. Still peels out, and it's still shifting decently. She's taking care of it. It's still got decent acceleration and shifting. Like I say, you lump, you can hear the noise, and it handles like a typical van. There's a tendency to kind of oversteer, and it bounces a lot, but it still goes down the road. Feel the bumps when you go over them, but it still shifts and stuff, because Hey, she's a little old lady and she drove it conservatively. My customers that drive harsher, oh, their transmission burned out long before this mileage. But this one still shifts okay because it's been babied. So all in all, not a horrible van, not a great van, but since this thing dies randomly on a highway going down a road, not a safe vehicle. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Why is this stupid thing breaking down? Undependable as that, nobody wants a vehicle like that. But as an all-around, knock-around van, if it didn't do that, it would be an okay van. No, I'm not a fan of Volkswagen either, and Volkswagen sold a Volkswagen Routan van, which is this vehicle basically, different body parts and stuff, but it's basically a rebadged Chrysler van. So I'm not a fan of Volkswagen or Chrysler. Kind of goes hand in hand that they'd sell the same thing in a Volkswagen format. So now you know the truth about these Dodge Caravans and why they were okay vans. They certainly weren't great. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Edgar Gomez says, Toyota SUVs are expensive. Why are they? Especially the trucks. Well, because they're quality vehicles and people know they last. And one of the reasons they're expensive is because they're expensively built. They are well-built vehicles. So they're going to cost more money. That's just the way that it goes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If you make something more quality, it's going to cost more money. I have to say, everybody knows me. I'm always saying GM makes junk, la la la. Well, brand new mid-engine Corvette, and I was impressed. But that's a low-volume production. They put a lot of money into that car. The V8 engines are made in the old factory in Tonawanda, New York, that made fighter engines for fighter planes in World War II. I mean, they do good engines there, right? But they're only making a few thousand of them. They're not making zillions of them. And from what I read, if they sold those Corvettes at $59,999, they wanted to sell them for less than 60 grand. Nobody's getting them for that, but that's the list price. If they only charged that much, people claimed they were losing over $10,000 a car because they're putting so much money into them. Well, Toyota and Lexus, they put a lot of money into their vehicles. They're not going to be cheap. How? Guys like me who are cheap, when I buy them when they're older. Because let's face it, nobody's going to pay that much money for a car that's got 100,000 miles or more, regardless of what the name is on it. And if they go 200,000-300,000, you buy one with 100, and you can get it a lot cheaper, why not? Take advantage of that. You're still going to pay some money. It's not going to be like, you can pick up a Chrysler with 100,000 miles on it for, $1,200. You're still going to pay many thousands for a Toyota product, but they're so much better made that it's worth paying the extra money. J-Ro says, 2015 Mitsubishi, 1 owner versus Honda CR-V 2012 with 3 owners. Depends on the mileage and some other things. I would not buy the Mitsubishi. I do not like them. Their quality isn't that good. They use cheaper piston rings. They burn oils as they age. The Honda CR-V is a great vehicle. But you say it's had 3 owners. Why? You want to do a bunch of research. If it has been wrecked, flooded, or stolen, totaled, and has a title that's not a clean title, that's been totaled by an insurance company or a salvage title, you don't want to buy it, period. But if it's been clean, you never know with people these days. Some people are squirrely. They buy something, keep it for a couple of years, then get something else. You never really know. But, if it's already had 3 owners and it's 8 years old, you'd want to do a lot of research and have a guy like me check it out before. But anyway it goes, I would never buy the Mitsubishi anyways for a long-term vehicle. And I would buy the Honda CR-V for a long-term vehicle if it was in good shape. Willie's on the Lamb says, I got 2014 Dodge Avenger. My check engine light's on for P0430 for camshaft position sensor, bank 1, sensor 1. So I went to a discount auto parts store, bought a sensor, put it on, but the code is still there. Help. The sensor, you got aftermarket. Generally, they're made in Mexico or China. Never buy a cheap aftermarket sensor for computer systems on any car, especially Dodges. My advice is, as you see, it wasn't that big of a deal changing the sensor. Go to the dealer, buy an original equipment factory sensor, put it on, reset the computer, and drive it and see what happens. I've seen that happen so many times with those things. Those sensors are very specific, and they just don't make them right in China. If you buy a cheap aftermarket sensor, this is something that, of course, drives me nuts as a mechanic, because there's nothing worse than, okay, I put in my thinking cap, I see what's wrong with the car, yada, yada, and then I buy the part and it doesn't fix it. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Well, What I did wrong was buying too cheap of a part. I used to try that stuff to save my customers money, but it kept biting me in the rear end. Now I say no. If you want to buy an aftermarket part, I'll install it, but I'm not going to guarantee that aftermarket part. Let me tell you, I'm not going to, because you never know. I've seen them where they didn't work from the get-go like yours, and I've seen them where they last for a few months and then break. It's not worth it. You're often better if you got a really expensive sensor that costs $500. You're often better going to a junkyard and buying a used one from a car that was wrecked. Maybe it was wrecked at a high speed. You knew everything was working, right? And then get that from a junkyard. Do not buy these aftermarket sensors for computer systems. It's too much of a gamble. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.